This is Monocle on Design, a show where we discuss everything from architecture and craft to furniture and fashion. I'm Nick Manise.
And I'm Maylee Evans.
On today's programme,
it's a Parisian special.
Highlights from Paris Design Week.
And the trade fair Maison et Objet.
All that coming up on Monocle on Design.
Welcome to today's programme. This week's episode is based in the French capital, where Paris Design Week is underway. We've got installations and exhibitions taking place in showrooms and halls across the city. Now, our very own design editor Nick Manise went along to gather a few interviews. Nick, welcome back to Midori House. Have you recovered yet?
Barely. It was a whirlwind day or so in Paris. The world wakes up from summer holidays and all these design fairs sort of take place at the same time. So over the coming weeks, our listeners are going to hear from Paris, London, Helsinki, also maybe a little dispatch from Valencia as well. But really, Paris is when it sort of all kicks off. That's the first one. It's made of, I guess, two components. There's the Maison Objet trade fair, which has now wrapped up. But that's sort of this focused space on the outskirts of the city that's really essentially a shopping centre for furniture designers, architects, developers, anyone that's looking to furnish or finish a project or present new works. And I guess people go out there to look at the sofas and the chairs and the dining tables and also spot some new talent. There's a lot of new talent showcases, but go out there to spot those things and use them professionally and at scale. Paris Design Week, by contrast, is, I guess, the spin-off event. It's the event that takes place in the city centre, in its galleries, in its showrooms, in its exhibition spaces. And these tend to be a little bit more curated, sort of craft-focused presentations of works. So you kind of get this nice tension between, I guess, the mass scale and the need for objects to furnish our cities and our homes at scale, and these sort of more niche collectible design moments that take place in the city centre as part of Paris Design Week.
You're sort of weaving your way through showrooms and exhibition halls. Were there any particular themes or threads running through some of the projects you were seeing?
Maison Objet always does a theme for the trade fair, and this year it's Terra Cosmos for September edition. And the whole idea behind Terra Cosmos was, I guess, to talk about or reflect consumers' desire for, and this is their words, awe-inspiring experiences. I think that's a lot to ask, but I think really what they're trying to talk to is the fact that this is a furniture fair. They're the objects that we surround ourselves with on an everyday basis, and why not have something that lifts your spirit every time that you see it? So that's sort of what they were gunning for. I guess in terms of like space age theme, maybe that's what Terra Cosmos makes me think of. That's perhaps something that's emerged over the last few years. I guess this space age concept. You're seeing a lot of aluminiums, a lot of metals, a lot of futuristic sort of styles, but it's certainly not. The fact that Maison Objet has made this their theme hasn't made brands then produce in that style.
Excellent. Okay, so we're going to kick off with our first interview. We're starting off with a collaboration between Mono Editions. They call themselves a furniture publishing house. So I just wanted to ask, what does that mean? So
a furniture publishing, they're essentially a producer, much like a movie producer. So they find designers and then help them produce their wares, and they fall under the Mono or the brand. They fall under the publishing house's umbrella. So Mono Editions essentially partnered up with Corpus Studio, who are an architecture studio, to produce this new collection of timber furniture made out of plane trees. It's really beautiful, really elegant designs. And if you're talking about themes that emerged beyond Terra Cosmos, which was defined by Maison Objet, if you're walking around the galleries and the studios in Paris where they're showing furniture and you're trying to get a feel for the spirit of French design is one way of putting it. It's really this appreciation for craft, and perhaps that extends from its tradition with fashion houses and the ateliers, but it really comes through in their furniture as well. And I think that's what Mono Editions have produced in partnership with Corpus Studio. So we're going to hear from one half of Corpus Studios, that's Ronan Legrand. But first we're going to hear from Leticia Ventura, founder of Mono Editions. She's going to share the three principles that this year's collection and concept is based on.
The first one is the use, the second one is the material, and the third one is sustainability and the fact that the furniture should stand time and trends so that you can use it anytime and everywhere.
Timelessness is quite difficult. Are there any sort of tricks or traits you picked up over the course of these three collections?
No, just production. There's always a hard time during production, but the architects are good help during those hard times.
So quality materials, and that's really about how you make things stand up to the test of time.
Definitely. And the use of it. Like, you should be able to use it in an office, in an apartment, in a house, by the sea, anywhere.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this year's collection. Firstly, material selection. What have we got here?
Plane trees, a tree that we have like everywhere, like in France, like we have like in all the Haussmannian Avenue, we have like in the south of France. And it's a tree that is really like in the commune, like nostalgia, a bit of like everyone. Our idea is that this tree that actually you have like everywhere in the streets, not many people know that when you cut the tree, you got like this really beautiful graphics. It's almost like it was like a drawing. And it gives like some kind of like exotic character, I think, to the pieces.
It almost looks like a little bit like an animal print. Like there's a lot going on.
Yeah, it could be like leathery, it could be like zebra, it could be like a tiger. And I think is when you start to look, you start to entering like a bit in a dream, which I think on everyone goes in his own fantasy. Like you see a panther, I see a zebra. So and I do like that, I do like that. When people see an object, that the object like brings them somewhere else. I think it's really interesting. Why we choose like this material? We wanted to explore a collection with a wood material because we previously did a metal collection on a lava stone, like so really mineral collection. So we were like really inclined to do like wood this time. The environmental aspect for mono edition is this specific tree is getting illness like these days, so they are like cutting them. And our idea was like to bring a new life, and to bring a new life like through design and through like a decorative aspect.
I'm curious, like you're architects by trade. How does that influence your furniture design? Do you look at things differently? Do you look at things spatially?
What I like to say is we do like design as if they were like miniature like models of like architecture. If you take like, for example, the coffee table and take like a bigger scale of it, I think it could be like a roof, you can see wall. I like to think that is like miniature model of architecture. What is our vocabulary, I think, is like to play with forces and structure. Here, for example, like the cantilever aspect of the table, which is a solid foot there that takes the tabletop.
The tabletop's like hanging out over the edge.
Out over the edge, almost like floating. And I think like in all the collection, you have some kind of structural force involved, and is what we wanted to do. For example, for the desk, to have the impression that actually is like all in compression and all in pressure, and we don't understand really like how it does still, but it does, and like it was our idea, like a game of force and like tension, and also like superposition, and also cantilever. So I guess it's like a vocabulary of an architect, I suppose.
Yeah, so I guess using your architectural building knowledge in a way to create really distinct forms. Is that part of the reason why you like to work with architects, or what's the pull of working with architects?
Well, the thing is, they have a really different approach than designer. I don't say it's better or less, but it's different. And I feel like they're building furniture, really. That's what Ronan was saying. But with this collection, you can easily see it. There is this contrast between the thickness of the plane tree wood and then kind of lightness, like the furniture is almost not touching the floor. And this is something I feel like that is a signature from architects. And they will always think of a system. It can be modular, it can be this system that plays with contrast, but they will have this really academic approach.
Yeah. And how like an object will like sit on the floor, how the weight is involved there. Is all our vocabulary of construction, as you said. We use that as a tool to create forms that we hope that are beautiful, because we are intent to play like with beauty and poetry as well, to create objects that are inspirational. So this is also really important.
That was Ronan Legrand, and before that, Laetitia Ventura. Now, Nick, I wanted to ask, collaborations with architects, it feels like something I'm seeing more and more often. Where do you think this is going? Is this something that's going to keep happening and grow, or actually do you feel like this is a moment in time, this is happening, but perhaps it's going to phase out?
No, I feel like this has actually probably been something that's been happening, I guess, for a long, long time. I think architects have long been preoccupied with, I guess, trying to create total environments. And there's that famous quote from Italian architect Ernesto Nathan Rogers, who said, he wanted to design everything from the spoon to the city. And I still think that rings true. If you're an architect and you're creating, an interior or a building, or even if you're a landscape architect creating a streetscape, why not look to also design the furniture that responds to that? And I mean, we see this across the board, everything from smaller brands. I mean, there's a great British brand that's launched this year, which we've featured on the show previously, Tamart, and that was by architect Amos Goldrick. He's producing furniture designs that was also previously featured in homes designed by his parents. And then you've also got the household, architecture studio names like the Snowhetters, who have dedicated furniture design teams, your Fosters and Partners, who have dedicated furniture design teams. So this is a thread, I guess, that's been running through design and furniture design for a long time. But what I do like particularly about Mono Editions is that they focus, as Letitia said in the interview, purely on working with architects. I do think it sort of gives these works that she helps produce a different quality, a structural and sculptural quality that perhaps you wouldn't typically get if you just had a furniture designer creating these designs.
The Entrepreneurs is Monocle's 30-minute weekly conversation with inspiring company founders, uncovering the secrets of growing a great business and discussing the many pathways and definitions of success.
I think in your standard entrepreneurial journey, there's a lot of times when you might want to throw in the towel. But if impact is really at the heart of what you do, you don't have that option. You have to stick to your guns.
We're craving curation in a very different way and have understood how small businesses have given complete life to our streets and communities. And I think we'll value them in a completely different way, which I'm excited about.
Tune in every Wednesday at 2000 hours London time for a new episode of The Entrepreneurs, right here on Monocle Radio.
Welcome back to Monocle on Design. This is a Paris special. Nick, where in the city are we turning our attention to next?
So we're heading to a showroom now that was presenting a collection called Solstice that was created by Modern Métier, which is a platform dedicated to contemporary design, produced in partnership with the designer Léa Zaral. And what I found so exciting about this was, so Modern Métier is essentially an online gallery, and for the longest time they've just been curating furniture, finding beautiful designs and helping people connect with those works and purchase those works. What its founder Mignot has done is actually reach out to a designer and, much like Mono Editions, has produced a collection, and it's her first one. It was this really exciting, really, I guess, energetic exchange that I tried to capture in this next conversation. We're going to hear from Min first, who began by sharing how the collaboration came to be, thanks to spotting Leia's work online.
I spotted her Primo stool on Instagram and I reached out because the colour and the forms caught my attention right away. And so we decided to meet up for a coffee in the Marais, and she very politely declined that I sell and distribute her Primo stool. But we really hit it off right away. And she actually suggested that we design and collaborate together on a collection. It's something that I never, ever imagined myself doing because my background before this was in fashion and luxury, in marketing and digital commerce. And it was a completely new adventure like a year and a half ago. By her side, I've learnt everything from A to Z, like producing a furniture collection, like meeting artisans, going to factories, prototyping. It's been such an amazing adventure, and today we're introducing the collection to the world.
This is the first design I launched 2 years ago. The little stool, like red wood, glossy. I love color, and I love use color like vernis à ongles in French. We say it for the. I have 7 colors in this collection for this stool. I use a fabric of a great brand, Pierre Fray, La Maison Pierre Fray, and this is the oldest fabric in her collection. And I love the texture. The stool have a shape very organic, and it's round when we look front up, but it's an oval, sensual shape. I love that the product I would like to caress.
It is something that you want to touch. I mean, it is. And I think part of it is almost like the forms and the shapes. Like there are sort of cutouts on the legs of the stool, I guess. That's been translated to this new chair for the Solstice collection. Tell us a little bit about this and how this chair came to be and the forms and the shapes that it takes.
The Gamma chair is an evolution of the Primo stool. It's actually the first chair that Leah's designed.
It's hard to draw a chair. I think for a designer...
It takes a lifetime normally.
A life, but
we did it in a year.
We did it in 1 year.
No pressure.
I love this chair because there are a lot of organic shape.
Organic shapes, and we were talking about the fact that, you're a textile designer as well, and the fact that this shape, it almost does feel a little bit like a textile pattern. Was that the intention?
The shape of the chair reflects a pattern, more delicate, I think, the pattern by the form and not the pattern very flashy or obvious.
From the front and the back, it looks like quite a classic profile, and then you kind of discover it as you walk around the chair, and it's something that I really loved the first time I saw the design. It also has a very low profile as well. We really liked this idea that it kind of peaks over a table. We had so much fun picking out the colours and choosing the tints of the wood as well.
The focus is to work with European producers. Like, how do you select who you're going to work with? It's one thing to design the chair, but then you've got to find somebody that's actually going to make it. How do you pick who you're going to work with?
Thanks to Leah, she introduced me to a lot of the artisans and craftsmen she already works with. For example, the Gamma chair, we use the same artisan that she produces her Primo stool. So we were in really good hands. They're made in Portugal, where they're amazing woodwork and furniture companies over there. We actually travelled over there to meet each designer artisan. It's so important actually. Sometimes we're challenging them. The first time, for example, they saw this chair, they're like, what is this? We've never seen anything that resembles that. How are you going to do this? And it's with them as well. We've developed together to bring them to life, which is a really important part of it as well.
Let's talk about some other, items in the collection. We've got these beautiful sconce lights. Maybe tell us about the inspiration, then we can get into the actual production of it.
I love these pieces because it's like a surprise in the collection. A lot of inspiration I love is antique jewelry, like Maya jewelry or Etrusque jewelry. It's like earring for the wall. In my work, I try to play with scales and make jewelry for the home.
Lighting fixtures in many ways can kind of be accessories for the home. Tell us a little bit about the production of this one as well. In Portugal, you talked about finding the right people to make it, who you're willing to have a bit of push and pull with. Was it a similar thing here?
The first design, the intention was to make it with textiles, actually, and it was just impossible to make. So we ended up finding a metal foundry in the Czech Republic where so much expertise, and we travelled to Prague and took a car for 3 hours to reach this atelier together. We spent 2 days. It was a whirlwind. The VAG wall lights are actually hand-casted in a sand mould, and so that's why you actually see the textures on the surface. Each piece, you kind of see the trace of the process, but also the hand of the artisan behind it. Everything's hand-polished and finished, and because it's in brass, when you hold it in your hand, it's really heavy. It's like a piece of treasure, When you see it, you really think of that right away, kind of like discovering that in a lost temple or something. And then in the solid aluminium, it has a completely different vibe. It's much more masculine. We always kind of think about the different interiors that these pieces can one day live in.
Maybe this is a nice way to bring this all together. Tell us a little bit about the ethos of Modern Métier. This is the first collection. What are some of the values that you want embedded in the brand and the designers that you're going to work with?
It comes back to the way I select the designers and the partners whom I work with. It's a lot from intuition and kind of my eye, I guess. The originality, I think it's really, really important and actually really rare. There's a lot of design that gets rehashed, and you can see right away when you come across something that is surprising, and that's what I felt immediately when I saw Leah's work for the first time. It's not so often that we kind of cross paths with a young designer like this, and so I'm honestly so proud to have worked with Leah for the last year and a half on this, and this is the first time the last few days meeting people for the first time and seeing their reactions in person, because Modern Métier until today has been just online. It's so nice to inhabit a physical space.
That was Mignota, and before that, Leah Zoral. Now, Nick, I wanted to ask you a bit about the role of gallerists, particularly in Paris. Why are they so key?
I think that points to something that I alluded to earlier about the fact that there's this amazing kind of craft tradition in Paris, in France, where you have all these ateliers producing, whether it's furniture or fashion, but also you have these galleries that sort of play this crucial role in being that connection between the ateliers and, I guess, people looking to buy these wares in the streets. And it sort of has this twofold purpose. One, it can be somebody like Modern Métier, who's currently a digital gallery, but it's helping connect new designers with the works of Leia, and actually at quite an accessible price point as well, which is something I find so incredible. Like, these are collectible works of design that I think maybe if we saved up for a couple of months, we could furnish our homes with it. There's a little bit of that to it, but then there's also this amazing tradition of preserving design heritage and making sure that it's front of mind with people. Like, you walk along a street in Paris, you look through the window of a gallery and you can see, amazing works from Charlotte Perriand from the 1960s through to, again, projects like this by Leia Zaral. I walked past Project 213A, who are also showing works, who are an amazing collective of young designers. So you're kind of getting glimpses of all these things as you move through the city. And I think that does a lot for imbuing a city and a people with an appreciation for quality design. And I think that's something that's really, really special and kind of is part of the reason why Paris and France has produced amazing designers and amazing works, particularly of collectible design, for a long, long time.
Welcome to the land of wine, cuisine, fashion, and the art of joie de vivre. France, the Monocle Handbook, is the third installment in our series of hardback guides for the best things to do, see and discover in all corners of l'Hexagone. Over 220 plus pages, Monocle's latest book showcases the crème de la crème of the country from the Atlantic to the Alps and the windswept Normandy to the sun-kissed Riviera. Plus, top tables in Paris, Nantes not-to-miss hotels, and where to splash out in Marseille, and plenty more to try from piste to plage. If you're looking to stay longer or put down roots, the book also spotlights the neighbourhoods to know and introduce you to the plucky entrepreneurs who have already made the move. France, the Monocle Handbook is out now. Buy your copy today at monocle.com/books.
Welcome back to Monocle on Design, where, yes, we're still in Paris. We're staying in the city, but turning to Maison et Objet. Nick, for those who may be unfamiliar perhaps with the fair, what might we expect to see?
It's funny you say we stayed in the city. This is really very much outside the city. It took me a whole hour to get out there from the Marais, which, I mean, who's complaining? You're in Paris. It's amazing. But it is a little bit of a schlep out there. But the reason you go is because huge trade halls, I think there's 7 or 8 of them, showing thousands and thousands of furniture items, whether that's chairs, whether that's cabinets, whether that's sofas, collectible design as much as mass produced. It is really kind of this magnificent, I guess, shopping centre for architects and developers who are looking to furnish projects. And that's really why people go out there. There are also moments of discovery where new designers present works, and that was part of the reason I was out there. I was out there catching up with Sami Benossi, one of the team from Hull House, which is this amazing design studio in Paris. They've previously been invited to present at Maison Objet. Full disclosure, Sammy was just out there having a little bit of a scout, but I thought it was a great opportunity because he is showing wares in the city this year as part of Paris Design Week. And some of that has been driven by previous partnerships that he's built up at Maison Objet. So why I thought this conversation was significant, because it shows you the power and the importance of a trade fair. I mean, we're reporting at these all the time, but I wanted to kind of look at the legacy and the impact that they can have.
So what exactly were the team showcasing at Paris Design Week, and who is this big French fashion designer who it seems like he was absolutely astonished by meeting?
So they're presenting a showcase called Hull House Design Days at Lafayette Anticipations, which is, I guess, a 3-story gallery space, an exhibition space. They're going to have 3 different guests who they've partnered with. One of those guests is Jean-Charles de Castelbajac, who is this amazing 74-year-old French designer. Now, this is what I was talking about, the importance of Maison Objet. A couple of years ago, Jean-Charles was presenting work alongside Hull House. The two of them came into contact and had a little bit of a conversation over the course of the Maison Objet showcase. They've kept that partnership and that friendship alive, and now they're presenting work during Paris Design Week. So we're going to hear from Hull House's Sami Benossi talking about that partnership with Jean-Charles, but also the other work that they're showing at Paris Design Week, which is taking place right now. Still, you can see this work until the 13th of September 2024. Let's hear from Sami of Hull House now.
We meet Jean-Charles de Castelbajac. When we finish to install our stand, I see Jean-Charles in his stand. I go to see him and I say, "Oh, I really like your stand." We continue to talk during the week, and after we meet at his office, show us his book, and he make us a retrospective of all his work. He was really avant-gardist, take a lot of risk, and he was the first to make a lot of things. His energy, and he's really open mind. In the design field, it's not easy to find designers who like to help a young designer and share contact, present someone, talk about us to other important people in the culture and design field.
Because I think that's what's amazing about it. He's a designer in his 70s, and you guys are just at the start of your career. So you did see a little bit of back and forth and exchange between the two of you?
After a few meetings, we show him the career chair. It's about transmission between generations. As we are two different generations, make a lot of sense because he was like this. He was sharing a lot with us. So we say, okay, that makes sense to make collaboration about this. I revisit our classic Descartes chair. The Descartes chair is inspired by Palabre. It's a traditional West African chair. It was something with a statue in a community. So it's old people who give advice to the other generation who can sit on it. Like if you are a famous marabout or sage of the village, you can use it.
And you've reinvented that with the Dakar, and now you're reinventing it again with Jean-Charles. So there's this constant transmission of ideas and information in making this.
Exactly. But it keeps the origin and it keeps the initial message, but just give a new perception, new story, and also new aesthetic, because it's made with artistic touch of Jean-Charles.
There's a profile of a face there and a back of the head, and they can kind of slot together and make a bench in a way, transmitting the seating along a length.
Chain of transmission of knowledge.
This is on show for Paris Design Week. The other big project is Seeing Sound. Tell us a little bit about that.
Seeing Sound started from the graduation project of Abdoulaye. He was really interested by the phenomenon of synesthesia. We meet a lot of scientific who study this.
So it's people, when they play music, they see colours.
There is a lot of specific kind of synesthesia, but the one who interests the most Abdoulaye is synesthesia, sound color. And also he have a lot of friends who make music, so he want to find a way to create products that allow beatmaker to see their music in light. For Lafayette, we want to move it to experience space design. So it's more scenographic and more performance, because we will invite a beatmaker to make live performance.
So there will be a composer and then there will be colours presented. Is it on a screen, or how does that work?
It's a specific product created for this. So it's quite big. It's like more than 2 meters by 2 meters. It's really artistic performance.
That was Sami Benassi there of Hall House. Nick, maybe just to round up, any final highlights?
I mean, I think what's particularly special about Maison Objet and Paris Design Week is there's this really nice marrying up of the trade fair and I guess the city centre experience. You compare it to somewhere like Milan and Salone del Mobile, which I love going to. It's the biggest in the world, which is what makes it so special. But there's this real disconnect between the offshoot showcases that take place in the city and what is presented out at the trade hall. Instead, Maison Objet really ties the two together. There's a guide on Maison Objet's website to the happenings at Paris Design Week, which I guess sort of encourages you to, not think of them as rivals, but think of them as really, really complementary. You kind of get that design shopping centre experience out at the trade hall, but then this really curated experiential experience in the city centre. And I think that's what makes it so beautiful. If you're a designer, an architect or a property developer, yeah, the trade hall's there for you. But if you're somebody that likes nice design or beautiful things, then certainly check out all the showcases in the city centre.
Thank you very much. That is all for today's programme.
For more design stories, listen to our 5-minute midweek bonus show, Monocle on Design Extra, which airs on Thursdays.
And if you enjoy print, you can pick up a copy of Monocle magazine. It's on all good newsstands now.
Today's episode was produced and edited by Maylee Evans.
It was hosted by Nick Manise.
Thank you very much for listening.